Hey, Lance Egan here with Fly Fish Food with Fly Fishing Skill Builder number 12. I can't believe we're at 12 already. More coming though. On today's Skill Builder, we're going to cover indicator rods, both river and lake, lines for river and lake indicator setups, and leader setups for those same applications. Before we get started on today's Skill Builder, don't forget to like and subscribe. Mash that like button right now, so that way you won't miss any more of these Skill Builders. They're still coming. All right, let's jump right into our first topic, which is rods. Rods for indicators. Now, these rods that I have out here are not all-encompassing. There are many more models than what we have represented here. However, we kind of chose a few models to cover some bases. So what I have in front of me are all 10-foot models. Length is an important thing when you're fishing an indicator rig. Whether it's a river or a lake, that length is a real advantage. So in front of me I have an Orvis Recon and a 10.4, a G-Loomis NRX Plus in a 10.4, an Echo indicator in a 10.6, a Winston Super 10 in a 10-foot 5 weight, and a Sage R8 core in a 10-foot 6 weight. So we have various price points, and you can find longer rods in most price points these days. All right, that said, why do we want length? Length helps us in lots of ways. Number one, it helps us slinging the heavy lines and the heavy rigs that we often use with indicators. It keeps line off the water further. The length also helps with mending. It moves more line. It helps with hook sets because it moves more line. It roll casts easier. On a lake, it keeps your back cast higher off the water. It also can help you high stick when you're indicator nymphing. So lots of advantages to go with the length. Now, can you use indicator rigs with a 9-footer? Of course you can. We've been doing it for years. However, if you're tailoring an outfit just for indicators, be it on the river or the lake, I would steer you towards a 9.5 or even a 10-foot rod. Outside of the length, what else do we need to do? So we need to mend line, which again the length helps with. We need to set the hook. Length helps us with that. We need to be able to cast the rigs. So all of these rods are designed to handle pretty heavy rigs. And if we team them with a proper fly line, it's going to make casting those kind of cumbersome rigs a lot easier. Lastly, I want to just cover the applications for different weights. So to me, I end up using 10-foot 4 and 5 weights mostly for my river indicator nymphing, and more of the 5 or 6s for lakes. And really for me, it's mostly 6s for lakes. The exception to that rule is I will often take a 10-foot 4 weight when I'm fishing high altitude lakes, where I might fish a floating line, kind of naked technique. I might fish a midge tip. I might fish an indicator rig. I might even fish dry flies. I find a 10.4 for most of the smaller fish you often find in high alpine lakes is a very, very good tool. Otherwise, think 4s and 5s for rivers, 5s and 6s, even 7s can be considered for lakes. All right, let's check out lines. All right, as I just mentioned as we were going through the rods, it's important for an indicator rig to perform flawlessly to team it up with the proper line. Now, once again, can you use a standard weight forward, whatever, double taper, whatever your favorite fly line is for indicators? Of course, you certainly can. However, as always, there are some tools that are better for specific uses than others. In this case, I've picked a few of our favorite fly lines for indicators in particular. So what makes these indicator-specific lines? Most of them are overweighted. So in more of a general purpose line, the infinity taper from Scientific Anglers, which would also be true of, say, like a Rio Gold or something like that. This is half a line heavy. It's a pretty long head. So I believe this head in like a 5 or a 6 weight's around 49 or 50 feet. It's a pretty long head, so it roll casts well, it mends well. What you don't want with indicators is a very short weight forward type of line. By that I don't mean short overall length, I mean short head. A short-headed weight forward will cast really well for most applications, but when you want to mend and reposition line at distance, you don't want to have a line that starts thin, tapers to thick, and very quickly tapers to thin. You want a line that tapers from thin to thick and stays thick for quite a while, and then tapers down to thin at the very back end, so that when you make a 30, 40, 50-foot cast, you're not trying to pick up and mend really thin running line. You want to have the body, the head of that fly line, the mass in it and the flotation in it to be able to pick it up and move it. All of these lines have that. So again, as more of an all-purpose line, the infinity taper would be one of my first choices. If you're buying a line just for indicator use, there are some specifically made for that. So From Scientific Anglers, we have their ANADRO indicator lines. They come in their Amplitude Smooth or their Amplitude Textured. They're the same line outside of the texturing versus smooth. They're a 60-foot head, so a very, very long head, and I believe they are 1.5 size heavy lines instead of just half size. So they're quite overweighted. On the Rio end of things, the Extreme indicator, more of like a 40-ish, I think 49-foot head, something like that, 50-foot head again. 2 full lines heavy. So all of these are powerful enough to deliver an indicator. If you're only fishing it with indicators, I'd probably look at one of those 3. If you're looking at an all-purpose line, I'd probably pick up the Infinity. Otherwise, again, think mending, think carrying kind of an awkward heavy rig, weighted flies or weights, a pretty big bulky strike indicator that's wind resistant. You want a line that's capable of throwing that. These can do the job. All right, next up on our indicator setup, we have leaders, our terminal end of this whole rig. And regardless of whether you're fishing on the river or the lake, there are some considerations here. Number 1, again, there's always a good, better, best in all these riggings. You can take a standard tapered leader, any brand that you have, doesn't matter if it's Umpqua, if it's Scientific Anglers, if it's Rio, if it's whatever. All of the standard tapered leaders have kind of one flaw when it comes to nymphing, and that is they're mostly butt section. So most taper leaders have 60% of them are butt section, 20% of them are taper, 20% of them are tippet. What we don't want when we're fishing an indicator rig is a whole bunch of thick butt section trying to extend through the water column. So what instead I would suggest is getting something like this Absolute Stillwater indicator from Scientific Anglers, which has a very compact butt section. It also is made of some colored material so you can kind of see which direction your rig is heading. Or building your own indicator leader. So this is just kind of a butt section. All I did was take some Maxima Chameleon, 20 pound, 15 pound, 12 pounds, somewhere in that neighborhood. You create a couple segments. I've got a blood knot in the middle, and you add your indicator above the tippet ring. I've terminated here to tippet ring. So what we've done is basically make it so that we have a semi-permanent butt section that we leave on, and then we just extend the leader. We make the length by adding 4x, 5x, 6x, whatever tippet below this ring. That way, if we move the indicator down here close to that ring, the only part of the leader that's extending through the water column is very thin, sinks very quickly, and keeps us in the best contact with our nymphs. If we were to connect that to a standard taper leader butt section, as good as Umpqua leaders are, I love them for general purpose uses. In this case, in a pinch you could use it, but this has, and it's not limited to Umpqua again, I'm not trying to throw shade at my friends at Umpqua, all those the leader brands are going to have like a 30 pound, 40 pound diameter butt section that just doesn't sink very well and doesn't allow you to stay in contact with your nymphs. So whether you buy one that's pre-made or you build one, they're easy to build, the idea is to make a very compact butt section and have most of your leader thin tippet. For more on that, you could do a quick Google search. I wrote an article a while back for Fly Fisherman magazine. If you Google low and slow nymphing or low and slow fly fishing, it'll come up and you can read that article. It talks a bit about building a leader such as this. Also, you could reference our Modern Nymphing Masterclass. We cover some nymphing techniques in there also. So the gist of it, you want to get your nymphs down deep. Whether you're on the lake or you're on the river, you want to get rid of the really thick butt section and you want to make the majority of your leader, it can still be long, but you just want your leader to be mostly thin. So get rid of your regular standard tapered leader and use a leader that's designed for indicators or build one to suit your needs. All right, that's a wrap on indicator, rods, lines, and leader setups. If you have comments about this, put them in the comments section below, or if you have any ideas for us to do future skill builders, drop those in the comments below also. We'd love to hear them. We'd love to get your feedback. We hope you find them useful and get you out on the water.